Welcome to Ohio Roots, the official podcast of the Ohio Genealogical Society. Join us as we embark on a captivating journey through Ohio's rich genealogy, history, and abundant resources. Hosted by me, OGS Executive Director Noel Poirier, this podcast brings you insightful conversations with a diverse array of guests, from OGS members, chapter leaders, and staff to renowned genealogists, historians, and influential figures within the genealogical community. Each episode delves into fascinating topics and captivating stories. So grab your headphones, hit that play button, and join us on this enthralling journey of Ohio's roots. My guest on today's episode of the OGS Ohio Roots podcast is Christine Bowman. Christine is the local history and genealogy specialist at the Massillon Public Library in Massillon, Ohio. I know Christine most from my run-ins with her at OGS conferences and fall retreats, so I really am looking forward to speaking with her today about what she does with the Massillon Public Library. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Christine Bowman. Well, let's get started. Christine, thank you so much for joining me today on the OGS Ohio Roots podcast. I really appreciate it. Do I call you Christine or Chris?
Christine, please.
Christine, you got it. The first question I ask all of my guests is, because I'm curious about them. Because you're a librarian who works in genealogy and history, you kind of overlap all of these different areas. So what was it that got you so interested in being in the position you're in now? What was the impetus for that?
Well, I didn't start here. I have a degree in history. My graduate work is in history, actually, and not library science.
Mm-hmm.
I taught for 10 years between the University of Akron and Kent State, Stark campus. But I have always worked in libraries. I've always been a part since middle school of libraries. And then as a history undergrad, I did a program for the History Club on genealogy. And that's kind of where I started with genealogy.
Mm-hmm.
So in my 20s, and I found that I really liked solving research mysteries.
Right.
And then this position came open and I shifted over. And from this, I find that I like solving mysteries for other people just as much as I like solving my own, which makes my job very fun.
Well, and that was kind of where I was going to ask you next. Was you started kind of solving your own mysteries, as I guess we all do.
Yeah.
When we start doing our family history. So then you kind of gravitated into helping other people solve theirs, which I think we all have done as well as part of being able to, whether you go into genealogy or family history or what you're doing with the library. Now you're at the Massillon Public Library, which is in the fairly eastern part of the state, relatively speaking. Talk to us a little bit about the history of the Massillon Public Library.
Well, the Massillon Public Library is going to start out as the McClymonds Library in 1899. There was money bequeathed to the community for the purpose of a library, and it's going to open on 4th Street, which was Prospect then, and then it's going to, outgrow that space as libraries do, and in around 1930, you have the current location being donated to the community for use for a library and museum. You have the Massillon Museum actually opened first here, and in 1937, the library will open in its current space, sharing with the museum at that point. They were both together through the 90s, and now the library, I can't even imagine with everything that we both have, fitting into one space, but they did it for a long time. And now we occupy the whole space and they have their own space down the street. So that's great.
And the Massillon Public Library isn't part of the Stark County system. It's its own independent library.
No, it's a separate city system.
Okay. Does that bring unique challenges?
It does, because a lot of people expect that we're part of the system. I mean, we work well together, especially the local history genealogy people. We coordinate, we help each other out whenever we can. But yeah, there's a lot of confusion sometimes about that, the relationship with the Stark Library, but also Massillon Museum, because people still think we're part of the same with them. So.
Now, I know there's a lot of different kind of initiatives and projects that are always ongoing in any library or organization.
Right.
And I was wondering if you could speak to a little bit about what those initiatives are at Massillon. And they don't have to just be about your local history genealogy.
Mhm.
I mean, but if you can,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about it.
Yes. On a larger scale, we are currently working on a renovation of our children's room.
Mm.
They're wanting to create a more welcoming, multi use space there. So we're getting ready to have some changes in the children's room. Um, Looking a little bit more at local history and genealogy, I have been coordinating with our technology training department
Mm-hmm.
and trying to work together, combine efforts. I noticed a need during my programs for technology assistance.
Okay.
People would be in one of my workshops for
Mm.
genealogy and be struggling with the technology.
Sure, sure.
So we have been trying to work together, right? To have workshops and classes that help researchers with basic skills, file
Okay.
organization, the cloud. What is the cloud? How do you use the cloud? Scanning. We did one even just with scanning. We talked about using your phone because how many times are people, say, even at OGS, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they have this document and they want it. And if they had their phone, they could just simply scan it.
Right.
And so we did some classes on that. Canva, um, trying to help different local organizations, history, genealogy, and other organizations be able to do things on Canva. So that has been something I've been doing is working with the technology training group.
Right. But can I interrupt you a second about
You
that?
sure can.
Um, d- what I'm assuming that your age demographic for coming in to use the
Hmm.
local history genealogy library is probably comparable to ours at the
Hmm.
OGS library.
Hmm.
Does that bring kind of special, unique challenges to the technology
It
aspect of it?
does, because I know even just my own experience, how much technology has changed during my
Mm.
lifetime.
Hmm.
I was around for the card catalog, you know,
Yeah.
so sometimes that is a problem, and that's what I noticed.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times people really get into genealogy when they retire because they have time for it,
Hmm.
and that brings a skill challenge, right?
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to identify and help people with, to be able to use some of the equipment that can help them get the material they need.
Right. When you're doing that, are you scanning in addition to what you're doing with helping
Hmm.
people? Are you also trying to scan more of your own collections?
I have been working, trying to address this whole online versus physical space, right?
Hmm.
So I
Sure.
have been trying to digitize a lot
Hmm.
to make that available in, more efficient ways, even.
Right.
Now you can sit and type in a word, and if something's OCR searchable, you find what you're looking for in a second versus having to dig. So I've
Hmm.
been trying to do that, um, to help, right, with that situation. So yeah, some of our archive boxes we started scanning a while back. I've found some digital versions of books I have on the shelf, which
Hmm.
I'm a advocate of having those books on the shelf, but
Right.
having the digital version is nice because I can search for a certain word that may not have been indexed when that
Yeah.
book was
Yeah.
written.
Yeah. I know even from the OGS perspective of what to digitize, what not to digitize,
Hmm.
what that even means
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
terms of what we actually mean by that.
Hmm.
I know Linda Swanson, who's the OGS librarian, has
Hmm.
done some webinars for our members on
Hmm.
digitizing and what's actually involved in that process
Hmm.
versus simply taking a picture of something.
Right. And we do actually, one of those coordinated technology training programs coming up on September 17th is in regards to digitizing and editing photos.
Mm, yeah,
Um, just helping people because anybody who's doing family history has
yeah,
this pile of photos, and how do you share that with the whole family, and who gets
right.
ownership? And that's one thing that digitization has made better, right? Everybody
Hmm.
can own this photo in a
Right,
sense. And so helping people digitize and even to some extent edit, to
right,
clean
right.
up, to make images appear better.
Hi, everyone. Noel Poirier here, Executive Director of the Ohio Genealogical Society and your host for the Ohio Roots podcast. Did you know you can help preserve the past and empower the future? Your donation to the Ohio Genealogical Society helps protect vital family history records and supports research for generations to come. Visit www.ogs.org/donate and give today. Thank you so much for your support. Join us on Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025 for the Mavernine Harshman OGS Librarian Day, a special event at the Ohio Genealogical Society Library designed for librarians, society members, and anyone passionate about genealogy and local history. The day begins with a collaborative session on successful genealogy programming ideas led by the Northeast Ohio local family history librarians, and the afternoon continues with a panel discussion on how libraries support genealogical research in today's evolving landscape. A guided tour of the OGS Library and Archives rounds out the day with opportunities for independent research and exploration. Whether you're looking for programming inspiration, research strategies, or community connection, this event offers valuable takeaways for all. For more information and to register, visit the OGS events calendar at www.ogs.org/events. I mean, that sounds pretty ambitious from the standpoint of any library, whether you're part of a large library system or an independent library. What are the challenges to kind of achieving those things?
To digitize, or
just to achieve any of these initiatives you're trying to work through?
Oh, so what you're saying, some of the challenges we face as an organization?
As an organization, yeah.
Okay. Well, funding,
Yeah.
as you know,
Yeah.
we rely on local funding via a levy and from the state of Ohio. We get a 2-year budget from the state of Ohio. So funding is always part of this, right? And
Right.
as technology moves forward and you need more technology, things can get expensive. You know, we are continually trying to offer more technology for researchers. We have 2 of the more recent microfilm machines. The one will even scan in HD.
Wow.
We have scanners so that people can come in and scan things, you know, make an appointment, come in and use an overhead scanner. If they're not familiar enough to use their phone or another thing, they can come here and get some assistance with that. Other challenges we already kind of spoke to a little: space.
Yeah.
You know, how do you have room in a library for everything you need? I mean, we have a beautiful historic building. It was the 4th residence of the founder of Massillon, James Duncan. And I think that makes us kind of a unique location. And I think people even come in, they wander in just because they want to see this house. You know, it was expanded in the 1930s.
Right.
And, you know, the addition was added. But the residence is still here. That makes renovation pretty difficult, you know,
Right.
to give the community the meeting spaces and study rooms and those type things, first floor bathrooms, anything, you know, of that nature. It becomes more difficult when you're dealing with a historic building.
Right.
And then my department, you're limited on how much you can hold, right? So the collection development policy limits me to very Massillon specific things. But I always say that when you're doing genealogy, people don't just start with, oh, Massillon existed starting in 1826. That's where, you know, you go further back, right? And people came here from other places.
Sure.
So I working to find that balance with the digital to supplement what we have here.
Yeah,
And
it's a similar challenge for us, right? The Ohio Genealogical Society, we focus on Ohio. But that being said, people came to Ohio from all over the place, and then they left Ohio and went all over the place. So it definitely is a struggle with even an organization like ours as to what you actually going to allocate physical space to.
Both times that I have done research at OGS, I have found like a major piece of my puzzle just in the stacks, in the things that aren't Ohio based. I went in expecting to do Ohio research because it's the Ohio Genealogical Society.
Right.
But I left, and what's funny is I am working on an advanced documentation workshop for later this year, beginning of next year, and I'm doing a case study for it. Wouldn't you know, last month I found a book that completely maps out the family that I'm now I got to follow up on all that and document it, but
Right.
it was amazing. I'm like, yes, this book right here. So
Yeah, so I share your pain about space and how to allocate it.
You know, and the limitations.
Yeah.
So
you're trying to direct people who are looking for non-Massillon specific sources to digital sources that
digital sources, online, you know, has become kind of a focus of mine, digital and online, both being different, right? Because I have about close to 200 gigs worth of of information I've collected personally
Wow.
that are, books that are not copyrighted, right? That are histories that I can
Sure.
collect from different states, different, Pennsylvania, Virginia, New England area, and I have those as resources in addition to what we offer here.
Right.
And then, you know, learning to work family search and ancestry and all the other options that are out there. That's kind of more my strength, I think.
Mhm. So, you talked a lot about kind of the resources you have, and
Mhm.
both the challenges and the advantages of what you have, I think, which are
Mhm.
which are great. Do you offer kind of programs that mirror that? I mean, you've talked a little bit about the scanning and the photo one, but are there other
Mhm.
ways you help people in their efforts?
Yes, yes. I mean, we do have a wide variety of programming, not just local history and genealogy for
Right.
all ages, but in local history and genealogy, focusing on technology, methodology, right? I've done AI programs, which I'm actually looking to do a new one updated because
Okay.
that is a world that is changing very
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
And there are negatives, but I think with genealogy, if used correctly, there are a lot
Hmm.
of positives.
Sure. Sure.
I think the idea of hallucinations is interesting because I fear that we're going to get a lot of produced AI produced stories, and
Sure.
like one that was written up on a person I was researching said though she was uneducated, she was a school teacher. The question was, were you in school during this time on the
Right.
census?
Yeah.
AI read it, that said though she was uneducated, she could read and write.
Yeah.
So I want to do something additional with AI to address
Right.
some of that and how we can be aware of that. DNA, I've done some DNA work, trying to understand better how to use those matches we all get
Hmm.
when you do the DNA test. Um, Book a genealogist. I do one-on-one appointments to help people solve those mysteries, right? I get very
Right.
caught up in other people's mysteries and using the online sources to do that, right? That's another area. Um, Workshops. I've gone to more of a workshop format for my genealogy items. History, I do, you bring in a speaker. I have a speaker coming to talk about Massillon Steel October 18th. Well, we have, I should say. Um, and Angela Watkins, she wrote a book on the Massillon Steel, the 1937 Columbia Heights Massacre. Um, so that helps with that historical part, which personally I don't think you can separate the two. Local history and genealogy are so intermarried that I really don't think you can separate it. But workshops have helped a lot more with the genealogy base because I can do a little bit more methodology, right? And focus in, but they're smaller groups.
Right.
So yeah, I've done quite a few of those, research notes and supercharging your searches. So online research, how to get better results, right?
Hmm.
Using old school Boolean searches versus,
Right.
some of the more current methods. And I want to do one. I'm working on it with a coworker on reminiscence therapy. Are you familiar with reminiscence therapy at all?
If is it in terms of folks with dementia using photographs and things like
Yes,
that? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Very familiar with it.
One of the things I have done with my appointments quite often is help people to find information for older family members who are either, you know, in, say, a home type situation,
Hmm.
or just they're getting older or they have dementia. And I've gotten a lot of good results with that because,
Yeah.
I did it before I even knew what reminiscence therapy was.
Right. Right.
Finding these things and helping them connect with their past. Or I have someone who I've been working with to take things to her mother because she wants to know more about who she is.
Hmm.
You know, um, but we're going to do one kind of focused on that idea, and it is connected to cognitive function and memory, but it can help
Hmm.
ground somebody. So
Sure.
how frustrating it is when they can't remember something, and if you take them back to something they can remember, which they remember the past much better, it grounds them, and the more calm
Right.
they are, the easier it is for them to move forward with what they need for
Sure.
now.
Right.
But it's not just memory issues that it's good for. I think it's good for all of us, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Connecting.
Well, I think it's interesting because those of us who do genealogy and family history,
Mhm.
we spend a lot of time talking to our elders,
Yes.
and maybe more so than others do. And I think that we kind of have a step up in aiding people in that respect.
And it makes a connection. If you want, you have that generational gap, and you're trying to find something to talk about. Well, here it is. Find out about their life. Find out about, all of the stuff that makes them tick. It's important.
Well, given all the work that you do every day, aiding people with their genealogy and family history, and your own experience with your own family history, are there tips that you give people that you try to make sure that they always kind of leave your office with a
I
specific tip?
I always joke that I should have been from Missouri, the show
Yeah.
me state, right? Prove it.
Right.
Verify everything, right? If you find it, I found that great book at OGS, and it
Right.
maps out the entire family the way I believe it was. Is that proof? Not really,
Right. Right.
So verify everything. Don't, without those documents, without some kind of proof, verify, 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 which is why I'm doing that advanced documentation workshop. It's not only to prove something and how to prove it and the rule of
Right.
three, having three documents, but how to address it when something is wrong. Because
Right.
people get very upset when they come in and we get on, say, Family Search or Ancestries, trees, and they see something wrong.
Yeah.
How do you address that?
Right.
You don't want to be confrontational with the people who have the wrong information. That doesn't
Sure.
work. So, how can you address it?
Right.
And my thing is, I believe you address it with documentation. Look, here's what I found. Help me out here.
Yeah. And since you're so focused on Massillon, speaking of
Mhm.
documentation, what are some of those relevant holdings that you have there that will help people?
We have three different atlases for Stark County: 1870, 1875, and 1896. What I love maps, and I've collected quite a few in my digital options as well.
Hmm.
But I love the ones that have names on them, property names. I do a lot with house histories, actually,
Okay.
house genealogy.
Right. Yeah.
I've really learned to use the recorder site and the auditor site for Stark County.
Mm.
I can really dig in there and get information, and that applies back to people genealogy too.
Right.
Where people lived and who they were living with, and all of that. But yeah, those maps and atlases are great when they have the name on it, right? Who owned
Hmm.
that property in a given time. City directories are also helpful. City directories show who lived in a house. Census records do too, but that's a
Right.
way, not who owned it, but who lived there, which is
Mm.
different.
Right.
Yearbooks, they give a lot of information. We
Yeah.
go back to, I believe, like 1905 or 1906 on our
Wow.
yearbooks. We have a variety of items in archive files that are just random ephemera from the area. So, that's some of what I'm trying to digitize too. Um, we have microfilm, the Massillon Independent. Everybody thinks everything's online.
Mm.
It's not. Even me,
Right.
who I have already said I focus on digital resources.
Right.
Not everything's online. Not
Right.
everything's on newspapers.com and Newspaper Archive and chronicling America. They're just it's not all there.
Yeah.
And we do have, going back, I do have even one reel that's 1840s,
Wow.
was
Okay.
a weekly publication, 1860s and on, with a few missing spots, but
Right.
we have that in our collection here. And there are gaps online, the 70s
Yeah.
to the 90s, especially because of copyright, because of all those things, right?
Right.
Um, we have databases that you can access with your library card from home. A lot of libraries do. So collect library cards. That's another tip,
Yeah.
because I have Cleveland and Columbus and
Yeah. Yeah.
Akron, and because everybody has different databases, right?
Right. Right.
We have History Geo, which shows first landowners, which
Yeah.
OGS, at a conference where someone from the OGS booth recommended History Geo to me.
Okay.
So, hey, thanks. So that, is a great site, and you can use it with your library card,
Yeah.
Massillon library card, from home.
So
Um,
how can people learn more about the Massillon Library? Where can they go to look for that information, and how can they go, say, to book a genealogist?
MassillonLibrary.org. does have our events. We got a new website, so you can find the events on there. You can also call. My extension's 350. So if you call the library, you can leave a message. You can email me for an appointment. I have people. Let's see. My furthest appointment was probably France. I wish I could have gone to them, but they came to me. But I have people from all over California. I've worked for several people from California, Michigan. So people come from a great distance to come and meet and find out what resources we have here in Massillon. But Bowman, CH, at massillonlibrary.org, BOWMANCH, at massillonlibrary.org. You can email me for an appointment.
Okay, great. Well, Christine, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me on the OGS Ohio Roots podcast. It's a real pleasure talking to you. I'm sure I'll see you at a future conference or a fall retreat, as that tends to be when I see you.
Yes.
So again, thanks for so much for being here today, and I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and I'll see you at conference.
Well, I want to thank Christine Bowman for joining me today on the OGS Ohio Roots podcast to talk about the Massillon Public Library and all the resources they have there for you if you're doing family history or genealogy research there. I hope you'll take advantage of Christine. She's a wonderful person to talk to. I think she'll do wonderful work for you. So again, thank you to Christine Bowman for joining me today on the OGS Ohio Roots podcast. Curious about your family's Ohio past? The Ohio Genealogical Society is your gateway to uncovering generations of family history. Whether you're a seasoned researcher or just starting your journey, the OGS offers expert resources, local chapters, exclusive online records, online and in-person programs, and a passionate community ready to help you. Join today and bring your family story to life, because your family's history matters. Visit ogs.org to start your discoveries.
The Ohio Roots podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Genealogical Society, the premier gateway for discovering your Ohio family history. Hosted by OGS Executive Director Noel Poyer and edited by Luke Poyer. Theme song is Beautiful Ohio, recorded by Bob Stanley and his orchestra in 1944. To learn more about joining the Ohio Genealogical Society, visit www.ogs.org.